Number 1.
Lisa resided with her mother and stepfather in Texarkana, Texas. She received a telephone call from a male friend at approximately 12:30 a.m. on January 15, 1999. A vehicle driven by an unidentified individual arrived at the residence by 1:30 a.m. Lisa entered the car and has never been heard from again. She did not share her plans with her family members, as she was allowed to leave the house whenever she wanted. They assumed she had left with a friend and would be back shortly. Lisa was carrying her house key at the time of her disappearance, prompting her mother to believe her daughter expected to return home. Her parents said it is uncharacteristic of Lisa to leave without contact for an extended period of time. She left all of her personal belongings behind, including her clothing, purse, makeup and curling iron. Lisa's relatives said that they did not notice any behavioral changes on her part prior to her disappearance. Lisa was a high school senior and transferred to Bowie County School of Success the day before she vanished. Her mother said that Lisa decided to leave Liberty Alau High School as the result of minor problems with several students and teachers. She also hoped that the transfer would permit her to graduate early. She received above-average grades and had solid relationships with her parents. Most of Lisa's friends were older, and her mother said that her daughter desired her own independence. Lisa was enrolled in the Distributive Education Cooperative of America in early 1999. She has experience working in various fast food establishments. Her disappearance is classified as a runaway with most agencies, though it's unclear whether she did in fact leave of her own accord.
Number 2.
Foster was last seen in Grand Saline, Texas at 6 a.m. on September 8, 1990. She had been at a shopping center on East Highway 80, known as the Bear Grounds, with 3 young men sitting on the tailgate of their truck. Witnesses stated she was drunk and fell from the truck at one point, striking her head on the ground. Some accounts says she removed her shirt to wipe the blood from her head, and others that she wiped the injury with a red shop rag. A short time later, Foster got into the truck with 2 of the men. The third was passed out in the truck bed. They left in the truck. The driver says he dropped one of the men off at a friend's home, and he, Foster and the third man, still passed out in the bed of the truck, went to City Lake. He said he returned her to the Bear Grounds at 6 a.m. and dropped her off by her car, but no other witnesses saw this. She has never been heard from again. On September 12, 12-year-old daughter told the nurse at her school that she had been unable to locate her mother for days, and the nurse phoned police. That same day, an employee at the Bear Grounds called police because Foster's car, a maroon Ford Thunderbird, was found in the parking lot unattended for several days. The car was locked, the windows were rolled up, and there was no indication of foul play. Foster's wallet, identification, keys and empty cigarette case were inside it. 2 of the men Foster was seen with that night have been eliminated as suspects in her case, but the man who says he dropped her off is the prime suspect in her disappearance. The suspect was married, and when police asked if something had happened to Foster, perhaps an accident, he asked for a lawyer refused to answer any more questions. He has never been publicly named. At 5 a.m. on the day she disappeared, this man was seen at the Triple B truck stop down the road from his home. His clothes appeared to be bloodstained, his shirt was torn, and his jeans were cut. He stayed about an hour, and when he left, the clerk could see someone else in his truck, leaning against the passenger door. Foster was an unemployed truck driver at the time of her disappearance. She was distraught over a pending divorce and had recently returned to her hometown to get away from her estranged husband. Although she had stayed out all night before, she had never left her daughter without providing some kind of care for her. Foul play is suspected in Foster's case. She is presumed to be the victim of a homicide. Her case remains unsolved.
Number 3.
Furch was last seen early on the morning of September 28, 2007, leaving her job at the General Motors assembly plant in Arlington, Texas, to return to her home in Fort Worth, Texas. She has never been heard from again. On October 1, after her loved ones were unable to get in touch with her, her daughter went to her apartment on the 2nd floor of Hidden Valley Estates near the Woodhaven Country Club. Furch wasn't there. Her daughter called the police, who went to the apartment themselves. Furch's vehicle, a gold champagne four-door 1998 Mazda Milenia with the Texas license plate number 69 Lira SJL, was missing. A comforter and pillows were missing from her bed, and a trash can, a vacuum cleaner and a sewing machine had also disappeared. Although they described the apartment as chillingly clean with no fingerprints anywhere, authorities did find blood evidence in the apartment and blood-stained towels, paper, a bath rug, cleaning supplies, duct tape and some of Furch's clothing in a nearby dumpster. Investigators said it appeared as if there had been a violent altercation inside the residence, and someone tried to clean up afterwards. There were marks on the carpet from recent vacuuming, and a bleach stain on the floor. Several days after Furch's disappearance, her car was found abandoned at an abandoned car wash off Hatcher Road in Dallas, Texas. The vehicle was severely burned, and its license plate had been removed. In November 2007, Rodney Eugene Owens, a former neighbor of Furch's, was arrested on unrelated charges and then linked to Furch's case. Investigators stated they had evidence, including fingerprints and DNA, to prove Owens was involved in Furch's disappearance. He was subsequently charged with her murder. A photograph of Owens is posted with this case summary. He has prior criminal convictions for misdemeanor offenses and is also a suspect in several felonies, including carjacking, burglary, aggravated assault and auto theft. Police believe he attacked Furch as she entered or was about to enter her apartment. He was convicted of Furch's murder in October 2008 after a two-day trial. His defense attorney called no witnesses. The jury sentenced Owens to life in prison. In 2010, he was sentenced to an additional 99 years in prison for unrelated assault charge. He must serve his two sentences consecutively and will have to remain in prison at least 60 years before he becomes eligible for parole. Furch had been living in her apartment since 1987 and had worked for General Motors for 17 years. Her daughters stated she kept in daily contact with her family, had no enemies, and was not dating anyone at the time of her disappearance. Foul play is suspected in her case due to the circumstances involved.
Number 4.
Gabbert's boyfriend, Chris Byam, told authorities that she planned to travel to Dallas, Texas from their residence in Pecos, Texas on December 1, 1997. Byam said that Gabbert wanted to visit a friend in Dallas and purchased a Greyhound bus ticket for the trip. Gabbert has never been heard from again. An employee at the Pecos Greyhound station told investigators that Gabbert never purchased any tickets at the location. Her boyfriend, Chris Byam, moved to Washington shortly after her disappearance. He returned Gabbert's two youngest children to their fathers but continued to reside with Gabbert's 13-year-old daughter. Investigators stated that Byam confessed to Gabbert's murder in December 1998. Authorities said that he claimed she pointed a gun at his back on the day of her 1997 disappearance, and he shot her in self-defense. Byam said that he initially buried Gabbert in the Pecos area, but he exhumed her body shortly afterwards and burned her remains inside of a barrel. He claimed that he submerged the container in the Pecos River below the bridge above Farm Road 3398. Divers discovered a barrel similar to the object described by Byam in August 1998. Investigators said that Byam described a 3-inch hole near the bottom of the container that allowed fuel and oxygen to enter inside. Byam also allegedly told authorities about a pipe inside the barrel. The container was located near the area Byam stated that he disposed of Gabbert's remains. Analysts announced that material scraped from the sides of the barrel were later identified as parts of human toes. Byam was charged with Gabbert's murder shortly after his reported confession. Her daughter eventually told authorities that Byam said Gabbert committed suicide and he disposed of her body. She claimed to have observed her mother's remains inside the barrel afterwards. Byam was convicted of murder in 1999. Gabbert was employed as a dancer in various Texas clubs in 1997. She and Byam resided in a mobile home on 20 acres of land he purchased near the Pecos River in October of 1997. Gabbert's body has never been located, but foul play is suspected in her case due to the circumstances involved.
Number 5.
The last confirmed sighting of Angelica was in her hometown of Temple, Texas between 5 o'clock and 5:30 p.m. on July 14, 1985. She was seen inside a 1977 Chevrolet pickup truck, accompanied by an unidentified Caucasian male and female. The witness told authorities that the truck's hood, front fender and bed were painted red and white. The doors were blue and white, and the top of the truck was painted white. According to the witness, the vehicle was dirty, dented and in general disrepair. Angelica was sighted in the truck approximately 2 blocks from her grandmother's residence in Temple. She had been walking back to her family's home at the time she disappeared. She has never been seen again. Angelica lived in the 800 block of North 6th Street in Temple at the time of her disappearance. A neighbor reported having seen her the day before her disappearance, pushing her niece in a stroller up the street between her grandmother's house and her own home. The neighbor stated someone driving a blue car pulled up alongside Angelica, and the driver attempted to get her to accept a ride. Angelica kept walking, and the car circled the block, slowed down alongside the child again, then drove away. She never said anything about the incident to her family. She disappeared the next day. A clerk at a Shamrock convenience store in San Antonio, Texas, reported seeing Angelica on several occasions in late July 1985, after her disappearance. San Antonio is about 150 miles south of Temple. The clerk said the girl, who resembled Angelica, would always get dropped off at the store by a man in a car and would go inside the store alone while the driver and car waited across the street. The girl was always very quiet and seemed to be tense and in a hurry when she made her purchases. After learning about Angelica's disappearance, the clerk tried to delay the girl the next time she came into the store by offering her a drink, then going to the phone to call police. But at that point the girl's driver got out of the car, went inside, grabbed the girl and told the clerk not to say anything. The clerk was unable to describe the man, and this account has not been confirmed. In 2007, authorities announced they considered David Elliott Penton a person of interest in Angelica's disappearance and in the disappearances and murders of several other young girls, including Amber Crum, Ara Johnson and Shannon Sherrill. A photograph of Penton is posted below this case summary. He has been incarcerated in an Ohio prison since 1987. He also signed a plea agreement admitting to the murders of 3 girls in Texas. The Texas victims disappeared over a period of 18 months in the Dallas area and ranged in age from 4 to 9 years old. Penton was also convicted of manslaughter in the child abuse death of his own infant son in 1984. He fled while free on bond pending the outcome of his appeal and remained at large until 1987, when he was charged with the murder of a friend's 9-year-old niece in Ohio. He was later convicted of this crime. Penton's cellmates went to investigators and claimed he had implicated himself in the disappearances of Ara, Amber and Angelica. He has not been charged in connection with any of these disappearances, however. Ramiro Rubiabera is another possible suspect in Angelica's case. In 1997, he was convicted of the 1987 rape and murder of a 16-year-old girl from Waco, Texas. Ibarra, an acquaintance of the victim's family, broke into her home and killed her. He was sentenced to death and is still awaiting execution. Authorities have been unable to link him to Angelica, however. A photo of Ibarra is posted with this case summary. Angelica lived in the 800 block of North 6th Street at the time of her disappearance. Her disappearance remains unsolved. Foul play is suspected.
Number 6.
Carmen was last seen at her residence in the 6700 block of Lanita Drive in Belton, Texas on July 1, 2007. Neighbors reported hearing a loud commotion at her home prior to her disappearance, but no one called the police. She has never been heard from again. She left behind all her personal belongings, including her purse and vehicle, and her 3 children. Carmen normally kept many of her belongings, including electronic equipment, in her car. She may have been carrying her cellular phone when she disappeared, but it has not been used since July 1. Carmen's husband, Grant, reported her missing on July 2. He stated they had been drinking together and he went to bed at 4 a.m., and when he woke up 4 hours later, his wife was gone. Grant and his brother are considered persons of interest in her disappearance. Grant is a registered sex offender. He was convicted of rape in 1984 and served time in prison for this offense. After his release, he was convicted of delivering marijuana, evading arrest, and 3 incidents of driving while intoxicated. He was out on bail when Carmen disappeared. He was later incarcerated after he missed a court date but was released in May 2009. There was a history of domestic violence in the Garth's relationship. She had filed for divorce in 2000, but the divorce was never finalized. Both Carmen and Grant faced pending charges at the time of her disappearance, resulting from a violent argument they'd had with each other. Grant had requested a protective order against his wife. Carmen declined one. Grant's parents resided with them in July 2007. He had recently been released from a psychiatric institution. Carmen owned a janitorial business at the time of her disappearance and was a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. She has 5 siblings and was particularly close to her stepfather. It is uncharacteristic of her to leave without warning. Foul play is suspected in her disappearance, but no charges in her disappearance, and it remains unsolved.
Number 7.
2 years later, and there's still no sign of missing mom Amalia Garza. Amalia, who is also known as Molly, was 39 years old at the time of her reported disappearance in March of 2018. "We have not been able to contact her, no one has seen her, nobody's heard from her," said Sergeant Michelle Ramos, a spokesperson for the San Antonio Police Department. While Amalia's case remains a mystery, San Antonio police are shedding light on the person they say she was living with at the time of her disappearance, at a home on Melissa Sue near Callahan Road. "What we do know is at the time she disappeared she was living on an address off Melissa Sue with an individual named Mr. Rendon," added Sergeant Ramos. Stephen Rendon was arrested last month by police in a separate case for aggravated kidnapping. San Antonio police took to social media on February 15, 2020 to talk about Rendon's arrest. In the Facebook post on the San Antonio Police Department's page, investigators say a female advised officers she had been held against her will and physically and sexually assaulted for several days before escaping. "I don't want to get into the specifics of that case because it's still an ongoing investigation, but once that arrest was made we started receiving several phone calls and tips about this individual," Sergeant Ramos went on to say. As police continued to investigate Stephen Rendon's aggravated kidnapping case from last month, the search for Amalia Garza continues. "Foul play cannot be ruled out. We hope that's not the case. We hope that she's out there," said Sergeant Ramos. Amalia is described as 5'4", weighing 115 pounds, with brown hair and brown eyes. She was last seen wearing a t-shirt and blue jeans. Investigators say anyone out there who may have any information on Amalia's case to call the San Antonio Police Department's Missing Persons Unit at 210-207-7660.
Number 8.
Gayton was last seen in El Paso, Texas, the day she went on a date to the El Reencuentro Norteño concert at the El Paso County Coliseum. A family member dropped her off at her apartment in the 11,400 block of Pebble Hills Boulevard at 7:30 p.m. This is the last time anyone in the family saw her. She texted her 7-year-old son father at 9:30 p.m. She posted on Facebook showing the stage at the concert and a selfie taken in the bathroom. Her last post was shortly after midnight on July 14. Her family reported her missing on July 16. At the time of her disappearance, Gayton was awaiting trial for 66 charges of credit card or debit card abuse and 1 count of criminal mischief. She had allegedly charged $713.72 online under a false name, and in a separate incident she'd allegedly scratched a woman's vehicle with an unknown object that caused over $2,500 worth of damage. She'd pleaded not guilty to the criminal mischief charge in October 2017. And her trial for that was set for August 9, 2019. She'd pleaded not guilty to the credit card charges in April 2019, and her trial was scheduled for November 1. After her disappearance, a warrant was issued for her arrest, but authorities emphasized they believed she was in danger and had not fled because of the charges. She had no prior history of disappearing, and her family didn't think she would have abandoned her son, and police stated she was missing under suspicious circumstances. In December 2019, Ricardo Marquez was arrested and charged with Gayton's murder. A photo of Marquez is posted with this case summary. He was Gayton's date to the concert that night and was the last person known to have seen her. He told police that they'd gone to his home in the 3600 block of Nehemiah Place, but that they'd argued and she used a ride-share app to leave. No evidence of this was found in Gayton's phone records. According to court documents, at 11 a.m. on July 14, Marquez texted his brother and asked to borrow his Jeep Wrangler, even though he had a vehicle of his own. 15 minutes later he asked his sister for a shovel, and he picked it up 10 minutes after that. Police seized the shovel as evidence, along with a pair of shoes with sand inside them visually consistent with the sand in the desert area off East Montana Avenue. They also discovered and seized zip ties fastened in a manner consistent with restraints. Marquez picked up his brother's Jeep at about 12 p.m. on July 14, and surveillance video from the 14,900 block of Montana Avenue showed the Jeep driving westbound, away from the desert area, about an hour and a half later. Authorities seized the Jeep and found blood matching Gayton's DNA in the rear cargo area. Marquez is awaiting trial in Gayton's case. Her body has never been found, but foul play is suspected in her case due to the circumstances involved.